Hey, how's it going? We're live and stuff. Anyone around? Yeah, I've been working on rookie ranks for 2021 class. I'm also late on my podcast, so I was trying to work through an idea I've got for that. How you all doing? Let me see if I can get a... Yeah, if no one's seen it, my rookie ranks are up and available for those who can follow the link or find it, I guess. Arguing about Jalen Waddle a lot lately. That's about it. Doing ranks differently this year. I've got a different kind of sheet. It's got a notes section, and I'm making notes as I learn about the player. I stole it from Zach Reed's film notes, basically. All right. I got Discord questions. College Dominator is the average of the best in last year. Average Dominator. It's in the database. Again, a lot of questions about College Dominator this time of year. What is it? How do you calculate it? Oftentimes it's, in the database is usually the answer, but I also got videos and stuff, so that's fun. Am I being held hostage in a Taliban, bro? Nope. If my stream quality's bad, I keep trying to work on it, but we live in the middle of nowhere. Our internet kind of sucks, man. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. I can turn some stuff off, see if it'll improve the quality. Close down Discord. Slack. I don't think that'll help any. That's not using the internet. Yeah, this is just internet in middle of nowhere, Kentucky, man. Good as it gets. I actually had long conversations with the guy who installs most of the cable around here about why it is the way it is. I'm meant to be able to... I have the highest package. I'm meant to be able to upgrade it, but they simply don't have the space in the... whatever you would call it, the receiver for our road. And they haven't upgraded this section of the county to fiber, so just kind of out of luck. Is it so bad? Spreadsheets and a guy talking, I didn't figure. Normally doesn't cause too much for trouble. Here we go. I'll turn off Google Sheets as well. Might help. Yeah, Google Sheets formatting. Blech. Blech. Hmm. There we go. Questions, comments? If not, I'm just gonna start working on stuff. Watch a man work a spreadsheet if you want. Oh, I did have a slight inclination to mess around with Google Sheets. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I've been playing with the idea of adding drafted rate in next to conference rate. I wanted to actually put it in instead of conference rate, but people in Discord feel like both would be useful. I hate adding the columns, but there you go. All right, so where's conference tab? So in the conference tab, we got a lot of shit, right? Including the counts of players drafted at each position since 2003, the counts of players drafted in the first 3 rounds, and those that hit at different levels. With quarterback and running back, it's players that hit top 12 PPR season in the NFL. With wide receiver and running back, it's top 24, and quarterback and tight end, it's top 12. Just a simple definition of hits. We've also got the percentage of all positional hits, but the thing it's looking up for conference rate is, if I'm not mistaken, well, let's check. I'm pretty sure it's positional hits or conference hits, which would be this. Better name conference hit rate. So let's take a look at an example here. I know. Fair enough. Chris Olave, Big Ten East. His conference rate is 11.6 in the Big Ten East. So if we skip over to conference, what we got? Big Ten East. Where's that 12 point something number for wide receivers? 11.6. Was that it? Yeah, it's 11.6. Okay, so yeah, it's looking up this conference hit rate, which, is interesting. But I also, as someone who doesn't know a lot about college or what teams are good, I'm interested in something else. I'm interested in how much draft capital is expended at those positions in general in each conference. So what I was playing with is the idea of, oh, that's terrible. Google Sheets formatting, All right. Oh, come on. Merge it. Let's do conference draft rate. So how many players since 2003 have been drafted in the first 3 rounds from each conference? And that's pretty easy to do. You just go the total that have been drafted divided by the sum of those that have been drafted in that position. So we can make it easier. We can lock in the numbers here in the sum aisle. So it's always going to be counting every player. And then we'll make it format number. We want a percentage. So, God, I hate Google Sheets sometimes. Okay, percentage with 2 decimal places, fine. Then we drag it over, and as you can see, because of the way we wrote the formula, it's now calculating it exactly how we want. I've already done this in mine, but I'd love to be able to just do it in Google Sheets instead of having to update the whole thing all over again. So as you can see, it's saying 2% of quarterbacks drafted in the first 3 rounds are taken from the ACC, 2% of tight ends, 1% of running backs, so on and so forth. And now if we double tap that, all right. Doesn't have quick keys, I forgot. Values only. Okay, let's see who is this coming up accurate. Yeah, that's accurate because I remember it being from when I did it in my own database. So there we go. God, nuts. Let me see here. Yeah, that's right. So essentially what you can do is look up this rate as well as the conference hit rate. And that would give me a good idea whether a conference gets drafted from a lot in the NFL. Let me zoom in here so you can see a little bit better. All right, so this is what we just calculated. So the reason why I want to do that, let's mess with the format here a little bit to make it all pretty. There we go. It's because then, instead of uploading a new version of it, my idea is that I can do it in the Google Sheet instead of having to look it up. So we've got conference hit rate over here. Why don't we look at conference drafted rate? And then you just do a simple index match formula to the conference tab. So we're going to be looking for, in the wide receiver tab, we're going to be looking for this column. We're going to be matching the conference name. 0 bracket. And then lock them in with those little pound signs. Normally I don't do active sheet work on stream because this is fundamentally the most boring thing most people will ever see in their lives, but it's something to do. All right, there we go. And if I copy, it has no quick keys as far as I know in Google Sheets, so you just have to go to copy special. All right, that's conference drafted rate. And so the reason I was looking at this is because, you know, Jalen Waddle's from the SEC West, whatever he is. And the NFL drafts a lot from that conference, but it doesn't have a particularly high. Clear, select all. Hit rate, so it doesn't really show up as a bias towards him, which you kind of like to do when you're profiling. So what I'm going to do is take out the 2022 class here. And so now when you go look at, I don't know, it could be anyone from anywhere, but if we look at Waddle, we see that 12% of wide receivers drafted in the first 3 rounds come from his conference, and it's got a 14% hit rate, which, you know, lets me know why some players are getting talked about more, like Jalen Waddle, like Terrence Marshall, for that matter, because he's in that Uber conference. I don't think they belong in that hit rate category, but there it is. And I can also do the same for tight ends and wide receivers to keep the columns even. Just going to call it drafted rate. I guess conference drafted rate. All right. Then we'll just do the same thing for all the others because we are that kind of boring. All right. Tight end match. Okay, can I type? Thank you. All right. Goddamn Google Sheets is weird. Okay, what's going on here? It's got insert locked, but I didn't ask for insert at all. You know the keyboard function that lets you delete the letters in front of it if you type more? For some reason, that's locked in. That was weird. Why did it do that? Oh, well, we'll work around it. Oh, hey, dudes. Sorry, didn't see your comments here. Can you make the spreadsheet bigger? Yeah, sorry, dude. Let me get my big fat face out of the way. Maybe a little too big, though. And again, this is all live, so if you go look at the Google Sheet, you'll literally be watching me do it, probably. As far as I understand. Yeah. Do I need a new keyboard or what? Specifically when I go to the match formula. What if I do this? Nope, still doing it. Well, that's annoying because we need to lock these cells in. So we need to be able to type stuff. Oh, there we go. Technology. All right. I'm going to copy that formula so I don't have to keep writing it. Should be available in the tight end tab now. Let's do running back. And that's not like a secret. You've got to go to my spreadsheet. Like, it's pinned to my timeline. You do not have to pay. It's not like a secret link. It's just there for everyone. Just in case you weren't aware. Like, I wasn't like secretly shilling my shit. It's something weird. Spaceman, you're in here. Have you gotten comfortable with this index match stuff yet? Because you really should. Not working in Google Sheets. It's an absolute dream. I do like the fact that Excel and Google Sheets kind of integrate this way, though. That's very useful. Like, I'm using the same formulas. There's just a few of the conditional formattings aren't the same, and I like those little colorful bars. And Google Sheets just kind of has the multicolored thing you see right here. Again, I hate adding columns to this thing, so there are already so many, and it bores the crap out of people, but Discord really did feel like they didn't want to get rid of the conference rate. They'd rather just see both. I'm like, well, they're both in the conference tab. But, you know, I get it. That's why I want to see it, because I don't want to have to keep flicking over tabs. All right, now every tab should have a conference hit rate. Neat. Drafted rate and hit rate. Nice. Now the hit rate is a percentage of players drafted from that team that hit those simple PPR seasonal long thresholds. But the conference rate is the percentage of players drafted from that conference since 2003. I guess I should put definitions of that in the formulas and results tab now I think about it. I'm using a lot of words. All right, so let's call it all. What's the first one? Conference drafted rate and of players drafted in the first 3 rounds since 2003 from that conference. Here you go. Percentage of players who hit top 12 for QB end and top 24 PPR season for RB receiver. All right, I shouldn't mumble. Why is... Oh, that's annoying. The end... That little keyboard function's getting really annoying. From the conference to... Top 12 PPR season for tight end and quarterback. Top 24 PPR season for running back and wide receiver. Size, I don't think that applies here. Just using it as a glossary. And yeah, this I don't have wide receiver. I don't have testing for that right now. All right, so at least you can, you know, see what that is. Go. I will never spell from and form right. I'm about to throw my keyboard out the window. I swear to God. All right. And also, if you just wanted to look it up by position, something I've been doing is actually, because I've been finding it interesting, looking at the percentage drafted and then the percentage who hit. So number of positional hits from each conference, because then you can do things like this. Yeah, I put it in a picture. You better see it better. All right. So on the left here, right here, where's my little funny marker thing? There we go. Let's make it red. Right here. This is the drafted rate. This is the percentage of players drafted in the first 3 rounds from each conference since 2003. So you can see the SEC basically makes up 22% of all wide receivers drafted in the first 3 rounds, which is an incredible market share, should we call it? Because the next closest is the Big 10 with like an 8.7% rate, or the Big 12 even. And the other thing I like to point out is that that kind of coincides in that the SEC West is getting the highest hit rate, 15.1%, but that's a strong, obviously, draft capital bias. You know, you need opportunity to actually break out, and you see how it conforms in no way to any other draft rates. that strongly suggests that the SEC West hits harder because they take more players. It does in my mind, at least, and especially the fact that all the other positional hit rates, like, they do not conform to a linear basis. The Big 12 isn't hitting at a higher rate than the Big 10 was, or the Big 12 South is now, or the Coastal is, and so on and so forth. So this, like in the podcast episode I was talking about the other day, this is the NFL's draft bias. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not a good conference and that we shouldn't pay particular attention to players coming from that conference. But it does seem to suggest it's something about opportunity as well as talent pool. And also, like any wide receiver contemplating playing college football who wants to go to the NFL, like, should strongly consider not playing for any other conference, to be honest, when it's that heavily favored. Let me see, what else can we see here? This is the running backs. Zoom in a little bit closer. Yeah. Okay. So 20% of all running backs drafted since 2003 have come from the SEC West. So yeah, the NFL loves the SEC West. You also see that holds true with the positional hit rate, and again, doesn't really conform to the rest of the drafted rates. So SEC West players are like the premium group. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be selective about the players coming from there, because this looks like opportunity bias to me. How about tight end? Pac-10. Okay, go Pac-10. The SEC loves Pac-10 tight ends, apparently. Sorry, the NFL. And the SEC at quarterback again. There you go. Anyway, I think it's interesting, especially when profiling. I've been looking at this conference rate to kind of get an idea of, what the NFL might think of them, where they might go in the draft. And I realized as I was working that hit rates don't conform to the bias. That's actually more like what the NFL should favor players at. I haven't put it in mine. Oh, okay. Let me go look at yours. So, if we go over to the wide receiver tab here. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Bateman's in a conference with 0% hit rate, but also 0% drafted rate, in that the NFL has never drafted a wide receiver from specifically, and I guess I should start pointing this out, the Big 10 West, and it hasn't always been the Big 10 West. Like, the Big 10 was a conference before the Big 10, before it got divided into, compass directions. So, like, I think someone mentioned AJ Jenkins was from the Big 10. But he wasn't from the Big 10 West. Sorry, that's not the way they're designating it. Someone who knows more about college can obviously tell me, how wrong that is. I don't know. I just know how they're designating it. And this conference has been active since at least 2015, because that's when I first have draft capital information from it. So yeah, it's a fairly big sample, and Kenny Bell was one of the last players to get a 5th round pick. So yeah, and then you go to Jamar Chase, and you see he's coming from the SEC West, so like Elijah Moore. But a good hit rate from the SEC West because of draft capital bias, and a good drafted rate. The NFL loves drafting these guys. So, yeah, it still strikes me like it might not be, like, I love Bateman, and I love, where is he? Rondell Moore. But the guy who might be slept on, not that it matters since we're not drafted now. I don't know why people insist on framing it that way at this point in the season. You can't sleep on anyone until anyone's drafting. That just sounds like, trying to claim it as your take, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world ever. But there you go. But yeah, Elijah Moore's coming from this heavily favored conference, and he's the most productive outside of Jamar Chase. From that conference. I mean, my pre-draft model actually has him slightly ahead of Chase. That doesn't seem right. I think it was the other way around. I might have messed that up. But yeah, Chase just profiles a little bit better to me, essentially in his role. But anyway, yeah, that's the way it came out. Neat. But yeah, they're essentially the same score, coming from the same conference, as productive as each other, coming from the best conference with the best conference hit rate and all of that stuff. And yet, like, everyone's talking about Waddle. I mean, I get it. I understand the argument a lot more after trolling a few of them today, but like Elijah Moore, like, there's no problems here. Apart from tiny guy, I guess. While your beard is awesome, I'd rather look at numbers. I agree. Me too. Hat tip spaceman, back to you. Are you late? I think I was late. Don't worry about it, man. Had to spam some Van Jefferson offers for an orphan I took over. Selling Van Jefferson? That'd be neat. Just saying. Doubles up as a Google Sheets tutorial. Yeah, I guess. Where's he from again? That's fair. Yeah, this accent is kind of confusing at this point. Some people are too lazy to look themselves. That's fair. That's why I exist, so that's fine. I'll be able to index match when all the executive function has left my body. Okay, it's not even hard. Come on, man. If you can, what is it? VLOOKUP. You can index match. You actually don't even have to count columns. Anyway, yeah. Yeah. So I just added that. You already have it. I have to do it for myself now, but I haven't. I've already done it for you. You can see the drafted rate. Oh. As well as the hit rate. It resizes everything when I upload it. I do dislike that. But, you know, as far as complaints go, that's a fairly small one when you think about it. Yeah, now I just have to find a way of getting a pre-draft hit rate based on their production for tight ends and running backs. Because right now, with that draft capital, I got nothing. They don't have breakout ages. What was it I saw the other day talking about running back breakout age? I know Anthony Miko's got one, but he does it slightly differently. But it's a bulletproof process guy. Forget anyway, and he was saying you can just use a 15% college dominator, but that's confusing to me because college dominator is almost strictly about receiving stats, and like running backs that hit 15% ever, like that's very rare, right? Why are these numbers disappearing on me? What's going on? Oh, okay. I guess I'll just go look at the best. It's probably the easiest way. Like, how many running backs get to a 15% college dominator? Best season. Okay, fair enough. This is a wide receiver tab, Pete. Don't be an idiot. I've got it all sorted for myself because I was doing some work in here. Total dominator. I don't even have college dominator in here for running backs. I have total dominator. Is that what we can use? Like percentage of receiving and rushing yards and touchdowns. The average there is 25%, so 15 would be a fair threshold, I guess. Running backs with top ball seasons average a 35% dominator, total dominator. I don't know if 15's high enough. I miss my music, man. I turned it off because someone complained about the connection, but I think I'm going to turn it back on. Yes, you're still there? Bean counter, yeah. That's who it was. Scrimmage dominator. That'd be essentially receiving and rushing yards combined, right? Essentially the same thing. Guess I can take a look at it. Yeah, it is that different. Sorry. Sorry, I've got a billion Twitter comments apparently. Whatever. All right. What does everyone want to learn today, children? Oh, that was it. Pre-draft rate's coming out slightly lower for me. Why is that? Wow. Oh, that's the problem with breakout age. I forgot to fix that. Technically, Jamar Chase gets a better score because he has a 20% dominant, 19 breakout age with a 20% dominator. I think that's it, isn't it? Oh, no, it's because it's included in his conference. Yeah, he's getting, Bateman's getting conference adjusted already. Wow. That's why and that's why I've got him at 2. I could have just read my notes. It's right here. All right, let's do something. John, you around? Someone asked, he's not a Patreon, but he's a supporter at least, how to make his own database based on essentially mine, I think, or Spaceman's or anyone's. How to do that in Google Sheets, and we can play with that if nothing else. Which ones are prioritizing my rankings? I mean, I can do it 2 ways. Either I can only list the things I really think are important, or I can give you all the information I can and then make content about which ones I think are valuable and how valuable they are. So, like, I talk about that a lot on my podcast, in all the videos on YouTube, in Discord, on Patreon. I can't recap all of that right now every time someone's like, hey, I'm not listening to your content, but which one should I look at? Like, I'm trying my best. I tell you what, here's a shorthand. I can delete everything just to the 4 or 5 that I really like, but then you don't, it's getting to be a frustrating question because people are basically like, hey, I'm not clicking on anything of yours, but could you break that down for me? I tell you what, there is a way to break it down. Formula and results tab, R squared result to average PPR points within the first 3 seasons. Sort by it. Take out everyone without a score, because those are the 2 that I just put in there. Nope. And we'll go over here. We'll shrink. All right. So what position do you want to look at? Here's the things that have the highest value towards predicting points per game in the NFL. I think that's the simplest, not recapping 3 years of content answer I can come up with. This isn't perfect. Just because something doesn't have a linear relationship doesn't mean it's not valuable. For example, if you look at any combine stat, you'll see it has no linear relationship to points per game. So it's basically ignorable in models, for example, although plenty of people like to use decision trees and thresholds. But if you're interested in how many points they score, which I think is a real thing that we're looking for, this is a list of stats that give us a direct connection or linear relationship to that fact. So, in short, I've tweaked my model, as flawed as it is, to tell me the most about it, but my model is flawed. And again, I pointed out how it's flawed a lot, and I got a video on exactly what it is and what it does and why it's not good, and lots of other stuff. I would avoid average age adjusted hit rate, because that's essentially counting itself. Draft round is the single greatest stat towards predicting whether a wide receiver has a certain amount of points per game or not. My pre-draft model comes in under that, but only just. But again, models have a lot of problems. Draft pick is worse than draft round. Average receiving yards per team pass attempt above the average of players that have been good in the NFL actually turns out to be the single best stat. And so if you go back to look at the wide receiver tab and you skip along just a little bit, you find, where is it? Average above age. That exact stat, and you can see it broken down by the best, first, worst, and last years kind of a thing. Where is it? I'm in tight end. That's why. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Yards per team pass attempt above age. So this column right here holds that stat, and that has the single highest relationship, 2 points per game in this as one stat. Now, obviously, you don't want to just look at one thing, but that makes that one particularly important if that's what you're trying to do, and so on and so forth. That's why I created this R squared and started posting my R squared models, because outside of like listening to, and I get it, I'm boring as fuck. I wouldn't listen to everything I've ever said either. I get it, but I can't, it's detailed and there's a lot of research behind all of it. But if you're just looking for which are the best at predicting points, R squared score. There you go. Those are the ones that have the best linear relationship. Now, if you're interested in decision trees or how to create hit rate buckets, that's a different conversation. But this stat, as well as the ones that follow it in terms of having a linear relationship to points, are a decent starting point, right? And if you weren't interested in wide receivers, but you're interested in running backs, you can just flip over to running backs and you see which stats have the highest relationship to points per game through the first 3 years. So for running backs, it's actually the average of their yards per team attempt above or below their conference average. So a conference average actually does the most help for running backs, which makes sense when you consider that Rashad Penny, like the big thing Jake and other film grinders kept telling me is that he's running in too easy of a situation. So a conference adjustment helps there, right? And apparently that's true for most running backs. That's why that one's showing up. It's also worth noting that it's still less helpful than the wide receiver stats that we're all getting around 19 to 20, whereas at running back, the highest score we get was what was that? It was less than that, because production's a little less useful for running back. So it also kind of tells you, yeah, it's hitting 18. Cool. So yeah, that's the single best answer I have for that. I think all information is useful, and I get that we can't pay attention to everything. So that's why I make content, and I have models and also these formulas telling you what's in my models, telling you what I've found to be the most relevant. And then I made videos on all of them to show you the p-values of all of the stats that I was using, that most are over the 95th percentile, but like points per game above conference average that I'm using for running back isn't. So statistically, I shouldn't be using it. But I like the variance or kind of the X factor in there because I've looked at these stats a lot, and models are all skewed to the right, which is a probability problem. That any prospect model is going to have. So I don't mind including a little bit of less accurate, less probabilistic stat in there because I already know the data's kind of naff for prospect models as it is. And I know that if you're looking at one stat for running back, points per game is actually pretty significant. If you were to rank players based on their best and last seasons per class, it's not a great list, but it's a lot better ranking than most single stats you can rank by. And you can also, you can kind of see that if you go to the R-squared results. So where's points per game? This should all be sorted by the same thing, right? Yeah, it's sorted by average points per game in the first 3 years. Per team attempts are winning out. But if you look at PPR points or points per game, I believe, here we go. Let's sort by looking at the actual variables. How about that? Points per game. There he is. Their average points per game, or we can look at their best, worst, last. Best. Okay, let's just look at those two. So we know that the highest scoring stats for the running backs in terms of predicting points was around 18 to 19% explanation of the variance, right? Where you see their average PPR points or points per game is explaining around 18%, and their best is around 17%. So they're not far off, and they're within the same category, I would say, as per attempt stats. So the fact they have low probability value doesn't hurt me a lot, or doesn't affect me a lot, considering I think the data is a little unuseful for models as it is. Without doing needless adjustments, which essentially just, well, not needless, but they're biased adjustments, just saying, well, the NFL likes this conference, so I'm going to give this guy extra points. But that's not telling you about the player, and that's just not the philosophical way I go about trying to score ranks. I'd rather take big swings and make big misses than, accurately predict that Philip Dorsett will have some level of NFL career. I just don't care. So, yeah. Tell you what, for quarterback, the only stat I really pay attention to is CPO. For running back, the stat I look at most is yards per team attempt above conference average. Their average year, not just their best last, but I look at their average above conference in yards per team attempt. But I also look at their points per game, as I just said. For wide receiver, I specifically look at their average yards per team pass attempt above the age curve. But I also kind of like looking at this yards per team pass attempt dominator, which is the same formula as college dominator, but applied to yards per team pass attempt. It's actually pretty neat. I like it. And it's looking on a per attempt basis at least, which corrects for some players that might have missed some games. I only look at seasons where players played at least 6 games to kind of adjust for that as well. At tight end, if I was going to look at one stat, it would be efficiency score, which is actually yards per team pass attempt above conference average. Interestingly, that tends to test fairly well. But when you go to modeling, again, like points per game for running back, efficiency score proves to have a low p-value or probability value. I just care less, again, because I find the data for college prospects to be wanting in terms of its ability to model as it is. But if I'm going to look at one single stat for tight end, it's pretty much what I'm calling efficiency score. And those are the things I find the most relevant as a single stat. Now, we have an extra edge when we get to wide receiver without draft capital, because breakout age is a good shorthand of understanding if they were particularly productive at a young age, which has a strong correlation to being more successful in the NFL than even successful players typically are. Not always. Julio Jones has a later breakout age than DJ Moore, for example. And yeah, I think Julio Jones has hit a height DJ Moore never will. Calvin Johnson has an age 18 breakout age, but, Demaryius Thomas, I think, broke out at 19 as well. So it's not perfect, but it's a good way of grouping players together. I don't think it's particularly useful for models, but I think it's an easy reference point. I do think using the information that breakout age gives us, instead of just going to decimals and thinking we're going to cure it by finding a more exact breakout age, although Matt Spencer's got pretty good data on how to do that, actually. I prefer to slide along to look at their career and how it played out. So I'll literally go over to the Dominator section and look how dominant they were, if there was a progression. If they broke out like year one, like Justin Ross and Rashad Bateman, I find that the most impressive, especially if they kept it up. Players that I want to look out for, ones that have a high college Dominator, but it's specifically because their best and last year was the same thing. There's a lot of variance in the college Dominator stat because of that. And so players like Larry Fitzgerald and others who were dominant throughout their career and above average based on the age curve look just as good as like Dominique Alexander, who only had one good year at age 23. College Dominator doesn't account for that kind of variance. And so I like to literally go look at their actual college Dominator stat. I will also go look at their yards Dominator or just their market share of yards, if you want to go simple, just to understand how much of their production is coming from touchdowns, which are prone to variance, and how much is coming from yards, which tends to have a much higher signal towards the player's actual skill or ceiling. So yeah, those are the basics of how I profile using those stats. But yeah, there's no single one stat. Basically, what I do, and you can go about it any way you want, but what I do is I try and get an understanding of how productive a player was and the manner in which he produced that way. Did he consistently grow? Did he just blow up at the end of his career? And then get an understanding of how well that compares to past prospects. And then go back to the individual by consulting people like Ray GQ and Zach Reed and anyone else who's pretty good at tape evaluation to give me context about what all that means. Okay, they were producing in a similar way to Calvin Johnson, but they're not Calvin Johnson, bro. I just got to tell you, they have a fantastic quarterback. They're playing close to the line of scrimmage, whatever it happens to be. And that's kind of my tiered process in a very shorthand way. So I think I got some answer to it all out there instead of, making you listen to hours of content. There is a single stat or a couple of stats for each position. Well, quarterback, there's really only one that I'll look at. But moving on from there, I actually try and get an understanding of how their career went. So yeah, again, that's why I kind of collect all of it so I can actually get a good example. I tell you what, we can actually do some of this to highlight it with, I don't know, let's just pick a name at random, but it's actually one I think plays out very well in this debate. Jalen Waddle, right? So let me expand and get off my ugly face. And we'll zoom in here. Too far. So if you look at any single stat for Jalen Waddle, he looks bad. I'm sorry, he just does. Unless you want to put in, per game adjustments, which again, I can find no player to justify that adjustment. There's no hit in the NFL that look good in the statistics because we just per gamed it on a 4-game season. It just doesn't exist. And so I can find no justification for it just by the way I think of it. But after looking across all his stats in this first section, I'm finding them woefully below average. Something I do notice is his best year is 15% of a Dominator. Let's just take Dominator. But then if I go and look at how his career actually played out, I found that 15% was actually in his first season, right? So while I'm going to troll people for it, I want to respect the fact that getting 15% at age 19 isn't bad. It's slightly below average, slightly below the age curve, but that's not bad. And we can find examples of players I like hitting 15% at age 19 as their first season. Plenty of times. 15% is a pretty good first showing, even if it's below that age curve. So what else can I see? If I go and look at his yards per team pass attempt, which is my preferred, like I mentioned before, I find that in that season he was averaging 1.9 yards per team pass attempt. If you look at the conference average, that's slightly below where he was playing, which again, I think is the SEC West. So that's slightly below, but I mean, it's there. It's within a margin of error that I really wouldn't care to bet my life on. The average is like 2.1, and he's at 1.9. And I also happen to know, based on where he was ranking in that year, if you go look at his, market share yard rank, where is it? He's playing third on the team. So he's third in the team in terms of overall receiving yards, but he's within a reasonable average of the conference average. In that 1 year, he played a full season at age 19, which is not a bad age to have your best season. All right. So how is he doing compared to his teammates? And if you go look at his yards per team pass attempt above his team average, you actually find he was 1 yards per team pass attempt below his teammates. But again, he's playing third on that depth chart, essentially. Henry Ruggs, if you can go and compare him to Henry Ruggs, he's around about the same rate. And isn't this the same team? So what I'm essentially saying is, by not just betting my life on any single one of these stats or combinations of them, but respecting the fact that people have processes, and if they're saying Jalen Waddle looks good, there's probably something to it, the same way that I look deeper into Henry Ruggs. What I find is that in the one season that he played, he's awfully close to being okay, good. And that's based on a high bar, based on the fact he's playing in the SEC West. So you can go across these other stats, which I've done, and you cannot do if you don't want to. But overall, what I see, and he's only highlighted for me to be very clear because I don't shut other people out and I know the answer. Obviously, my model's the best, because that's bullshit. Right? I need all the information. I need other people to point me to it, especially if they're aware of college, because what do I know about college? Literally zero. I don't watch it. I have no idea who these players are or who these teams are. So taking into account other people's opinions actually helps me. That's why I'm looking deeper into Jalen Waddle, not because anything about his numbers sticks out. So can I make a case for Jalen Waddle being a dark horse candidate to be good in the NFL? Yes. I can also tell you he compares to no previous prospect that's done that. He doesn't look like a late breakout that actually happened, like someone like Kelvin Benjamin, or even AJ Green and Calvin Ridley have late breakout ages, but that's because they started playing late, but also played multiple seasons late and were more dominant by far than Jalen Waddle ever was. But we still have this one okay season that he played in full at age 19. So what can I do with that? And what I ended up doing, because no one who likes Waddle seems to be willing to think this way, like let's put him in actual context instead of just per game, as if that compares to any good prospects. What I actually did is I looked at the percentile rank he had in my pre-draft model, because his score is fine. It's in this middling range. It scores players basically between 0 and 10, and there are a few players over that 10 with Rashad Bateman. But 5 is middle ground, man. It's not saying this guy is trash or not going to do nothing. And given what I've already done with his profile, I know this something that might suggest that the noise around him is true, right? So what I did is create a percentile rank and look at players within a similar percentile rank. And what happened when I did that is a whole bunch of players who never did anything showed up, but also Robbie Anderson. Now, if we go look at Robbie Anderson's profile, I'm not going to do it here because I can't type it in. But what you'll find is Robbie Anderson played 2 full years, one at age 19 and one at age 21 or 22, if memory serves. And he was pretty good, close to average in both of them, playing further down the field. So does Jalen Waddle compare well to Robbie Anderson, since that's a positive comp based on this percentile rank of my pre-draft model? Well, partly no, because Robbie Anderson was playing as a 1, I think, in both of those years. He was fairly dominant, or at least he was a lot more productive for his team in a lower conference, to be fair. But what does that mean to me? I see Jalen Waddle performing at a similar pre-draft score as Robbie Anderson, despite playing on the third option on a better offense in a better conference. So that means something to me. There is a path to Jalen Waddle being a dark horse candidate, and it's not per game, because if we adjust all these players per game, you get more wrong. You draft more players above Calvin Ridley. You draft more players above Kenny Golladay, because it gets more wrong. So I don't want to go that route. Instead, I want to say that Jalen Waddle has a comparison to someone that's definitely been good in the NFL, and that's Robbie Anderson, through the process I just outlined. The other thing I noticed is that Jalen Waddle has an 18.9 yards per reception and only 3.1 receptions per game. And again, that's only using seasons where he played at least 6 games. So that's essentially just his mark in that one good season. I happen to know because I looked through the data. So my next stage is go and learn from some of these guys who have actually watched him play. How does he play? Why does he look good to you? When I did that for Henry Ruggs, that's when it fell down. I found a lot of value in the touchdowns and how productive Henry Ruggs was with touchdowns in Alabama. But every film grinder I asked that I trusted said there's not much special about the way he plays. So I was pretty okay just writing him off, but admitting that he was good for his team in a tough situation on a good conference. And he was drafted in the first round, so fine. So what I want to know from my film grinder bros is he operating more like Robbie Anderson? Those are my next string of questions. Does he look anything like Robbie Anderson? Is that why he looks good in the field? Or is he even better? Does he have more talent or more skill or more traits? And is this 18 yards per reception, but only 3 receptions a game for some other factor, like a lot of drops because his quarterback was inaccurate? Or was he getting a lot of yards after the catch? That tells me more about the way he might play. I might not compare him directly to Robbie Anderson, but it will give me a better understanding of how he'll fit in the NFL. And at least one player in a similar ranking in terms of production was successful. Now, does that mean he can ever climb above, right now, my top tier? No. I think he'll shrink to the bottom of any tier that he ends up in, because at the end of the day, he doesn't compare well to past prospects. But I can see a route that he could be good based on his production in that one season and just have missed out playing too much. So if, as I'm getting the impression from Twitter, when I go talk to Zach Reed or Ray GQ or whoever you trust when they're evaluating tape, I'd advise you have your own names, but those are 2 at the top of my list. I want to know what they think. And if it's actually showing up, if it isn't just noise because Alabama or because of SEC West, because he's fast, whatever, then I will happily elevate him when he gets draft capital. But I don't think even if he got first-round draft capital, he wouldn't jump above Jamar Chase for me. Not a chance in hell. Elijah Moore, I would personally like a lot more, even with slightly less draft capital, because he's in a similar conference, and I saw him do it. With Jalen Waddle, it's all of a maybe. And to me, I saw him do it is better than a maybe he could have. So I don't think he could jump Elijah Moore, even if Moore gets 4th-round capital and he gets 2nd-round capital. You know, there's a balance based on opportunity, but it would have to be pretty strongly in favor of Waddle for me to fade Moore. Now, when you get to players like Bateman and players like Rondale Moore, who I think definitely proved more in college, but also got to play a little bit more. Now, Rondale Moore didn't. To be fair, he was able to do it with one season. Just saying. But anyway, Rashad Bateman has a lot more problems when it comes to his conference. So if Waddle is drafted significantly over Bateman, I could see Waddle being a better bet than Bateman. But I'm going to prefer Bateman because I saw him do it, and I know the NFL just sometimes has its own bias. So, yeah, that's the parts of the data that I use, if I were to say it very quickly all in one go. Now, you see, I've got a similar process for tight ends and running backs, but there are less stats because there's less use, because age isn't as helpful at wide receiver, at any position other than wide receiver. So it lacks an element, but it's the same tiered process. And I don't know, I've written it down, I've videoed about it. I've written rankings and profiles for wide receivers for 3 straight years now. I don't know of a simpler way of saying just look at these columns. Mainly because I think anyone telling you to look at certain things, I don't know it's the best impetus to give you. I think you should look and try and find what positives you can. And if he doesn't compare well, just know that. But if he looks good on tape, or he's an athletic monster and gets draft capital, if you don't lock yourself in to just look at 3 things and just get an understanding of how he produced, I think that serves me better. I don't know if it serves anyone else better, but it definitely serves me better. I get to be more fluid. I don't have to be as locked into takes. Bateman, I will never like Jalen Waddle more than Bateman, but with the right draft capital, I can accept that I should draft Waddle over Bateman. I'll just probably actually trade down. But still, in the same way that I liked Mims and JJ Sega-Whiteside, but I didn't burn capital on them because I could respect where they got drafted and that it was lower than other players. I never really had to force myself to reach, you know? So even when I drafted them, it was for a reasonable cost, and I didn't lose much because they haven't hit yet. And I don't think Arcega-Whiteside's ever going to hit at this point. Mims still has potential. So yeah, I'd love to highlight all of that simply for you, or say that my models rope all that in, but they don't. I find models flawed and incapable of creating perfect or anywhere near perfect rankings, but they can give you a good reference point in the same way that, any process says you look at multiple things. The way I look at my model, I advise you not to make your own, or just just look at how their career played out. Look at how they compare to past prospects, which is actually why this age adjustment over here for wide receivers works, because this is essentially comparing their production in yards per team pass attempt at the age they played to players who were good in the past. And so this is almost a direct comparison to players that have already hit. And that's why it tests well. But it's also got a selection bias because you're only looking at players that were good. So, of course, it's going to test well, which is part of the problem with models. All right. That's my latest attempt at trying to break down what I pay attention to in the database. I did give you one column or one or two columns per position, if you didn't miss it, that I particularly pay attention to. But it would be really disingenuous of me to say there's anything in here that I focus on. I think all of it could have value. And if someone's telling you something different than a model or a breakout age tells, I think the best thing to do is go dig into some of those other stats. And so I kind of end up looking at it all. Yeah, that's the thing. They're projecting Waddle to be a top 15 round pick. That's not for nothing. I do think the NFL has bias. I do think sometimes they just, draft guys from the SEC West because that's what they do. But draft capital is important. Opportunity is important. And I don't know jack shit. I'm not a professional football coach. So, yeah, I try and stay fluid, but I have my preferences. And I prefer players who compare more directly to those that have done it in the past. But I am looking for a route, right? You're looking for a path to potential success for those who aren't as productive. Doesn't mean they're not good. It tells you nothing really about the players, except it tells me how well they compare to past players. So what I want to do is find some past players they do compare to and see what happened. Now, the fact that Waddle's 1 year puts him in a percentile rank of my draft model, pre-draft model, to Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson did that with he was undrafted and went to a terrible team. That means that any positive draft value should probably really increase my ranking of Waddle, right? But right now, I don't have draft capital. I just have the assumption based on conference rate or drafted rate. And if that's what you're including, then I want to see you put Rashad Bateman at the bottom tier. Because if you're adjusting Waddle up that high because of draft round or draft rating or conference rating, and it has that large of an effect, then Bateman should plummet. And you know it if that's what you're doing, if you're being honest. But you're not. You're including it for some players and not others, and that's just never going to be my process. Or you have, kick fantastic model, and you've solved the NFL. You just don't want to show anyone because I'm sure, you wouldn't let that secret out the bag. You're making all that money in all the leagues that you constantly win because you know everything. Cool. I wouldn't either. But as far as I can tell, that's not possible. So I'm not downgrading Waddle outside my top tier because Bateman outside my top tier. He was just too good compared to past players who've been good in the NFL. If he gets drafted low, then I'll adjust his value based on that. And it's the same with Waddle. He just doesn't, but the opposite. He just doesn't compare well to past players. Can I see or accept that he looks better than he produced because he was injured? Yeah, I can accept that. And he's going to get draft capital, apparently, so I'll adjust with it. But for right now, based on the numbers I know, not the numbers I make up, imagining draft capital, Bateman is in the first tier and Waddle's in the, he needs draft capital. He desperately needs draft capital to elevate him outside of a third round of rookie drafts, if I were to put a number on it randomly. Whereas Bateman, he would need significantly low draft capital for him to move him out of a first-round potential pick for me right now. And I'll wait to see what the NFL does, because the beauty of our thing is we don't have to do it until the NFL does their thing, and then we'll know more. And they spend a lot more money and effort doing this stuff, so we get to trust it. A little bit. They do have biases, I swear. All right. Hope I answered some of those. Yeah. I think we just went over that. All right. That was a bit of a rant, but I really don't know how to summarize what... I gave you one or two columns per position, but my true answer is I don't see... I don't know. I guess if I was to translate it, not being a tape grinder, it would be like, why don't you just watch their 9 routes? Those are the most important. Because I want to see what they do on the other routes. That just makes sense to me. Why don't you just watch their crossing routes? Those are the most important, or whatever. I don't know routes. I've heard those terms before. It's because there's more information there. So other things, I think, like there could be routes that are more telling. Like reception perception says there are routes that are more telling than others. That's great, but it's not like Matt Waldman isn't looking at their other routes, right? So, yeah. Also, one supplementary would be, I say, with running back, I'd look at their best year if I only looked at 1 year. With wide receiver, I look at their average. And with tight end, you look at their last year. I don't know why. Those just seem to be the best. I can make up stories as to why. But those seem to be the best years to pay attention to if you're just going to look at one segment. Or even just look at one segment to start with, right? Look at their points per game in their best year if it's a running back. Look at in their average if it's a wide receiver, and look at their last points per game if it's a tight end. And to be fair, points per game, at least it gives you a pretty good idea, right? We know what fantasy points are. It makes inherent sense to us. So that's fine. If you're just going to look at one thing, like I don't think points per game tests the best, but if it makes more sense to you, it gives you a better idea of how productive they were, then do that. I also have conference adjusted points per game, which gives you an idea if they were over or under the average for that conference, which gives you a little bit of a nudge on whether, that conference just particularly passing heavy or particularly high scoring or whatever, or low scoring for that matter. So if you just like points per game, I can't tell you it's the best stat. It's not. But if it makes inherent sense to you, then that's probably going to give you the best idea, right? If you were just going to go look at one thing, just go look at points per game. Or if you're like, nah, I've seen, Robbie Anderson outscored DJ Moore. Points per game doesn't make sense to me. Then go look at whatever does. Dominator makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. It's just a percentage calculation, but intuitively it makes sense. I like yards per team pass attempt, personally. It also happens to test the best. So, yeah, those are the stats. Someone just said something. How's my 2022 class looking so far? I am I'm not a Devi guy, man. I have some 2022 prospects in here because they're in the data and I have their date of birth thanks to DLF. So, let's see. What position tab am I on? I'm on tight end. I've got Hudson Henry and Jeremy Rooker. No opinion. I actually end up having a lot of running backs, I think. It's just whoever I have a date of birth from, where I list it all by age. I need their date of birth to do that. I've only got Olev and Shakir. I actually kind of like Shakir. I'm not sure what I feel about him going back to school. But he was, his best year was his last year, which isn't great. But he also, again, speaking to the Jeremy Waddle 15% line, Khalil Shakir had an 18% dominator, or yards dominator, sorry. He had a 20% dominator, age 19. That's something. And he had 46% last year. It's okay. I don't like people blowing up that late, but a 40% dominator isn't nothing to sneer at, even if it's in the Mountain West Conference. I'm pretty sure that's the right thing to say. Mountain, did we say? Average dominator over there, 32%. Yeah, all the conferences are far below 40, so 40 stands out. So I don't mind him. He just went back to the 2020 class because he's going back to school. Justin Ross, actually, he's got an age 18 breakout age already. He looks pretty neat. But again, if you want Devi, there's a lot of people doing great Devi content. The guy I know I talk to the most often is Ray. Ray's constantly grinding the 2020 class. Ray GQ on Twitter, Dynasty Destination on his podcast and on YouTube. He's also got more followers by far than me everywhere, so you probably don't know who he is. Yeah, I have the most running back prospects for the 2022 class. So far, Isaiah Spiller is looking best. I've got no idea if that's a good thing. But yeah, Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall are at the top of the list. And they're just fictional names to me at this point. Someone just messaged me something. What was that? I just saw a message, man. Man, they're having a big old conversation in one of my feeds. I have to go get caught up in that at some point. I can't find where that comment was. It popped up. New Excel sucks. New Windows, sorry. And to be fair, I said I talk about this stuff a lot. That's also not pay me money kind of a response. Most of the stuff I just talked about, the articles I've written, the videos I've done, they're just out there, man. I like making money, but I'm not shilling. I try not to shill anyway. No, I really can't find it. Someone said something about the YouTube channel. If anyone needs a link to it, I'll give it to you. But again, you don't have to go watch my damn videos, all right? I'm very boring. I'm a nerd, and I look like this. I get it. Go watch Ray GQ. At least he's, sexy and stuff. It was a Twitch sub. All right, that explains that. I don't know why. Every time I try and go to Twitch, there's something about the whole platform that really slows everything else down. No, this is just all about the Fortnite guys I watch. Anyway, if you're in here and you sent me a message on Twitch, I apologize, and I appreciate you sending me a message. Yeah, we're streaming on Twitch and YouTube, and I don't know why. I don't know why I do these streams. It's not like nerding is entertaining live, but I do kind of enjoy just talking to you all about football sometimes, or prospect evaluation, or whatever. As stupid as it is, and as bad as I am, I enjoy it. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. More questions, hit me up. But John, are you in here, man? John Lynch, he asked me about modifying the database to make his own. And if he's around, John McGill, sorry. You see, that's difficult. Yeah, he wants data not in the database. That's an entirely different process. It's easy to move my shit around because it's all linked up to the same ID. Time to hit the hay. Good night, man. Appreciate you joining me. It's always a couple of brave souls. All right, so I'm turning this damn light off. All right. Sorry, it's blinding. I know, right, Salvatore? I think more of us are nerds than not. It's actually the weird thing. I think we're overrepresented in Dynasty. So here's a question: should you draft wide receivers or running backs in rookie drafts? That's kind of the subject I was thinking about talking about on the podcast. That's 2 days late. Any idea? I've got to create a new NFL ADP database. I know I got a table around here that shows you what I'm thinking of. I think the answer is dependent. It's like sorry, I didn't mean to stop talking there, but it's like a zero RB or not to zero RB. It's zero RB when it's appropriate. Robust RB when it's appropriate, you know. Same with rookie drafts. It makes a lot of sense to be more primarily focused on running backs, I really think. But you don't take someone over Justin Jefferson. You don't take someone over DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley, for example. You use them to go back and essentially redraft. There's a level of certainty with a prospect where everything changes, I think. You see, I think that's a growing consensus. Just draft running backs, stupid forehead. And I think that's true. I think I can prove that with numbers. It's always better to just draft a high volume of running backs and search for old wide receivers. I think that's a solid dynasty theory. The thing, I think running back is about volume, and not just in the NFL, not just you need opportunity to score. And me too, Nick. I wish we had more. If we could see 3 seasons, I really think this would be an easy decision. But I'm not going to perform the same bias as, Waddle. Like, I didn't see it. He's got one great season. He ranks under people like Bateman and Chase, and just where it is. Hopefully the draft capital can fix it, but he's coming from a rough conference to do that. But we'll see. I think the answer is trade back and get as many running backs as possible, or trade up and take the best wide receivers. But that seems counterintuitive because then you've got the occasional running back like Saquon Barkley, Zeke, Todd Gurley, who just the level of certainty that they should be the 101 overall pick. And I mean absolute, not throwing shade. Like no one should have drafted anyone else outside the 101 spot, except for Superflex maybe. And so with that level of prospect, you don't do either. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's not appropriate to go zero RB. It's not the best bet. Or robust RB for that matter. Robust RB. So it's draft running backs until you don't. Like if you drafted this class as running backs, which we were all kind of leaning that way, over the top tier of the wide receivers, I'm not sure it's the best way to go. So individual years are going to be different. But it's specifically worrying when looking at this running back class for 2021. Like, I don't know. Is that a better year to trade back and get volume for running back? Or just trade up and get wide receiver? And to be very clear, if you're drafting wide receivers, it's to trade them when they hit. Unfortunately, like that's the shitty thing about wide receivers. It's their value we want more than their points. What if we just take... No, that won't work. I'm thinking of using position finish instead of ADP. No, it hasn't, you damn phishing email. I got to thinking about this because I'm looking for better ways at targeting running backs. Because if you draft heavy wide receiver, and I normally end up doing that, you got to find a way of searching for running backs. And usually it's using the dynamics or the thought process of zero RB to grab them late. Search for the Austin Eckler's, even the James Robinsons, who I freely admit I didn't catch. But I got Myles Gaskin, and so on and so forth. But there's got to be a way. Not got to be a way, but I want to find a better way of pilfering running backs. I found this indicator, but I'm not entirely sure it's great. It might just be kind of noise. But running backs who get less volume than average by their position rank can do more with it, so a higher points per game at that position rank than you'd expect, almost always improve the next season if they play a full season. The only person to fit that list in 2020 is Nick Chubb, and he's an aging running back, spiraling towards a second contract. So it's not a bad old / value losing running back to target, maybe, but it's kind of a loose indicator, You can see all the top 12 picks highlighted, and you can't see that at all. But if you're going heavy wide receiver, rookie drafts or startup drafts, we have to be better at targeting running back. And if we're not, then we have to target running back and rookie drafts pretty much exclusively. But then it's so much easier to prospect wide receivers in rookie drafts. Outside of a very rare few. The very top tier, like Jonathan Taylor last year, Clyde Edwards-Helaire got grandfathered in with his draft capital. Zeke, like say Todd Gurley and Saquon Barkley, they're the ones that run to mind. Salvatore says, I got picks 105 and 110 in those 6 spots. I can only use Javonte being an RB worth taking over the wide receivers this year. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think running backs are worth taking over wide receivers with better, more likely profiles. I don't want to take Javonte. I don't want to take Jamal Jefferson over some of these wide receivers. I mean, we haven't seen the draft capital yet, but that's where I'm at pre-draft. So my idea is, if you're in that position, trade back. I know it's easy to say trade back, but I mean, what are our options here? We need running backs to win. We're being fairly piss poor at targeting the Derrick Henrys of the world. Everyone thought it was going to be Joe Mixon, Well, not everyone. I might have been better than that. But I also didn't capture James Robinson. I didn't capture Derrick Henry. Which means capturing Myles Gaskin and capturing whoever else, Kareem Hunt, for example, wasn't quite enough. I mean, that just might be where we're at. But I keep wondering if we can do better in rookie drafts to modify that problem. which would be trade back, take more running backs and future draft capital, not at all costs, but as often as possible. That's great, man. But at running back, here's where I'm at. I don't know the player matters as much as a wide receiver. They can't force the issue. If he gets drafted behind a great running back, you're waiting for an injury, and then Alexander Madison, it happens, Or you get Nick Chubb and you get Kareem Hunted, for that matter. There's so much standing in the way of running backs through opportunity. It makes them easier in some ways and harder in others. You could be right about Javonte, and we don't see it until Derrick Henry year 4. In which case, you just constantly bleed value, and you passed up on who? You passed up on Justin Jefferson, or Calvin Ridley, or DJ Moore, who you could have easily traded for Javonte, or the equivalent of Javonte, like Derrick Henry, plus pretty quickly. But I can't find a way of clearing all that up and putting it in a table. No, man. I tell you what, another way I'm looking at identifying players. Where is it? Oh, okay, it's in the other thing. Hang on. I'm creating this draft template basically for myself. But there's it. I made something similar for the Scott Fishbowl to give away, and I was trying to modify it for us. So, the season adjustment. I was looking at who got more expected points than their draft position. Their finishing points per game rank actually seems to indicate, which ideally is a guy getting more volume, but underperformed, and you'd hope regression takes care of that. And two players that stick out that way are Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders. Also, David Johnson, honestly. Where is it? There it is. I did that the wrong way around. There's got to be a way without just making up narratives. It's got to be something that can help guide our narratives a little bit at running back. That's my point. So his running backs, as they're currently being drafted according to DLF ADP. We zoom. All right, this is, the last time I dragged DLF ADP, this is the order they're being drafted in Dynasty, okay? So over here, you see their expected points and their points per game. Christian McCaffrey still had good points per game, even though he missed a season. And this is the average points per game that they got, or the players got at that position rank. So I'm wondering if there's a way we can modify it. But what we see is... Sorry, sometimes this thing's just too big. What we've got is Saquon Barkley, obviously underperforming in the points per game column, but we also have Josh Jacobs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Zeke Elliott, and Cam Akers. that's how much they were underperforming their volume last year, which again, regression should mean they push forward. But then you've got someone like Cam Akers who wasn't really getting enough volume to justify his draft position rank. But as I've got over here, I was trying to get over here, season adjustment, what we expect from them in certain seasons should help indicate that Cam Akers should increase. So I was trying to find a way of merging all that together. Joe Mixon underperformed his volume slightly. Kenyon Drake did for sure. Singletary. But here's the thing. I hate this list. James Conner, Philip Lindsay, Rashad Penny. So what if we sort by expected points per game? Ezekiel Elliott and Joe Mixon show up, and I don't like that list. Josh Jacobs, again, I think he is what he is, you know? Again, there's Miles Sanders and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Saquon Barkley, but we know he should be by him. So it's the right kind of list, but it's not turning up the names I'd expect. That's probably a me problem, right? Speaking of Javonte, by the way, I think he did fine in my pre-draft model. May have closed that one. I love player evaluation, just don't get me wrong, but the best routes in Dynasty tend to be a special merge between player evaluation and just straight up playing the market. Javonte. Yeah, there he is. I think I ranked him. Yeah, like 10% of his touches came from the receiving game. It's pretty neat. 2.4 yards per attempt. Very good. Adjusted. Over the expected in his average in yards per team attempt as well. He compares well to hits in terms of the breakdown of his overall way in which he produced. He's one of the few that do in this class, actually. But, you know, last year, so did, what's his name? Why am I not seeing his name? Joshua Kelly. There you go. Yeah. No. Lynn Bowden. Matthew Perry. That's who I'm thinking of. He played for Navy, though, to be fair. And came out as a senior. I think I figured out why Spencer Brown's so high, by the way. Don't know if you even ranked him. Probably put him in there. He's got like 5 receptions career total. Yep. Thanks. 4.7 yards per touch. Okay. Wow. Michael Carter shows up fairly well as well. Right. Running backs. Yeah, there are guys showing up positive here. And let's see more. Right now, the comparison thing's doing it for me. So, Edney Harris, Chuba Hubbard, Kenny Gainwell, Javonte Williams will be on a very short list of players that compare pretty well. Michael Carter's close enough, and I like Kenny Gainwell because he's a receiver and he was productive in that role. But draft capital is pretty much going to flip any of that on its head. It's running back, man. It's rough. Yeah, possibly. Probably not. Because those stats aren't telling us if they are good. It's telling us if they were productive, and they're already showing up as productive. Saying a player would have been more productive if is kind of a red line for me. Like, I don't know. I don't see enough reason to suspect that's true. We know there's a special connection between opportunity and teammates helping each other out. Targets aren't earned, but they're not shared and vacated either. Same with rushing opportunity, man. You could easily say maybe they should be lower because the team didn't feel confident enough in one, and they're overproductive because they helped each other. Either one by themselves wouldn't have been enough. The relancer might just be by Saquon Barkley right now. Christian McCaffrey's still going 1 overall. Saquon Barkley's fallen to what is this, 4th? I've got to switch this over to my database. Unfortunately, this has draft capital, but it doesn't have expected points, and I want to use them. I got to fuel this with my data, I think. I do like this historical data, though. Anyway, where we at? Running next target, I guess. Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders. People are really down on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, though. Still keep thinking there's upside in that situation. When I explore it, instead of historical ADP, look at historical trends. Again, the indicator that pops up is players who get less volume than expect, but are overproductive with it. It tends to lead to more volume. So, like someone like Josh Jacobs, I guess he's still going to get the volume, but I don't think I'm going to lean on him any heavier than they are. Same with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders. That's the bugaboo. Will teams lean on it? And it seems to be so team-driven. Joe Mixon, don't the team just fade at this point? In that case, the target list would be these guys. Don't know I can fit that one in here. Yeah, I think that's what I provide. My lack of awareness helps. Yeah, I'm worried. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I think typical smart guy stuff. Scott Barrett, right? Players getting volume are more likely to get more volume, more likely to get high levels of volume next year. So you look for regression. You look for fantasy points over expected minus scores, because they're going to get similar volume and they're going to regress back up based on those touches. But I keep thinking, because teams, can fade players, that there's value in seeking players that overperform a lower expected volume. If you see what I mean. Tell you what, let me I mean, we have this calculation in here. Wouldn't even have to. Why? Okay. I'm looking that up a weird way, but all right. I'm going through a positional rank instead of player name. A lot more people fit that definition, huh? Yeah, Scott's not wrong. It's just got more misses. Sorry to be so quiet. You actually got me thinking. Does not help. Oh well. I'm going to play with that. I think a way to target running backs might be using several indicators. One being efficient on the touches they're given, but also being efficient on lower volume than you'd expect. Know what I mean? I should probably get out of here soon and start talking to people that I'm related to. People arguing over stuff that doesn't exist is funny. All right, so go away for a minute, music. We're looking for running backs that are efficient, which we have a list for, on low volume. And also running backs who are efficient on high volume. That's 2019 that I've got highlighted here. Not terrible. All right. Jeff Wilson. Okay. Not stringent enough. Okay, that's pretty selective. which would have put us targeting Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, nice, Dalvin Cook, yeah, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Kenyon Drake. Damn it, I hate Kenyon Drake. He did finish as running back 15 this year, though. It's not terrible. Also, Josh Jacobs and Connor, who were values, to be fair. Ish. 2018, we would have been talking Barkley hit, Gurley, meh. Kamara, good. Elliott, good. Connor got injured. Mixon, finished as running back 13. It wasn't terrible. Marlon Mack, running back 23. Aaron Jones, Devin Cook, and Kerryon Johnson, disappointed. Didn't he get injured too, though? Yeah, he played 8 games. It's not a terrible list, guys and girls. In 2017, the only running backs we would have been interested in was Gurley, Bell, Fournette, and Elliott. They finished 3, didn't play 41st, but played 8 games. Okay. What if we... It's not perfect, but it's a pretty good list. And that puts us on Dalvin Cook, interestingly, in both categories. How is that possible? Oh, no, it's not both categories, that's why. Puts us on Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, David Johnson, Myles Gaskin, and Austin Eckler this offseason. And Austin Eckler is an awkward one because he didn't touch the ball enough, really. Did Austin Eckler finish as a running back 20 still last year? No, 27. Oh, what? Yeah, running back 27. Right. He was receiving more volume than he would expect in the top 27. Okay, cool. We can shrink that list a little bit better then, can't we? Would have put us on McCaffrey, Henry, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Drake and Jacobs. Drake and Jacobs kind of hit. And 2 of them got injured. 2018, it was about the same. Gurley disappointed. Connor disappointed. Mixon disappointed. Okay. And no, kind of requires tweaking. You know what I mean? Whoops. We're getting a lot of green. I don't hate it. All right, let's just look at 2019 for a second. So essentially, we would have added Derek Henry and Kenyon Drake, one of who hit. Essentially, you just add Aaron Jones, who hit. I mean, it's a pretty simple method, but I don't hate it. And again, that would put the targets this offseason for value running backs, not the top of the chain. That's Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, obviously. But Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, David Johnson, Myles Gaston, and technically Austin Eckler. I guess people are going to want to know the rates here. Equals count FS. Equal to but 41%. 41% of players that conform to one or the other indicator in terms of efficiency and volume hit inside the top 12. Do we have a comparison? We could create. Haven't thought of doing that here. Dope. Yeah, that's it. I'm looking for ADP hit rate, basically. Oh, not good. At 14% of running backs who drafted in the top 12 finish in the top 12. That kind of sucks. Since 2009, I'm adding a condition. 24%. Okay. Now we have to add. Oh, that's why we didn't put positional condition in. Uh-huh. Silly me. Okay, 3% of running backs. All right, that's not great. Oh, that's because I did. And that's why you don't write formulas live. End up looking like an idiot. 12% of running backs is the answer. Pretty much across the board, 12%. That makes sense. All right, that's why. All right. Okay. That's odd. %36 of running backs drafted in the top 24. Top 36. Wow. Okay, this is the view I want. So where do top 12 positional players come from? 34% of them drafted in the top 48 finish as top 12 players. Now, how far do we have to go before you get to all of them? Well, there's going to be some that's undrafted, obviously. Whoa. We're bad at this. Okay. It pretty much peters out at 42%. We draft 42% of top 12 running backs, really? Yep. Not the best look. No problem, man. See you later. I'm just grinding. Well, since 2016 is the best we can do. That's 32 of them. $17. 3%. $240 running backs. Finished in the top 12 running. Hang on a second. There you go. All right. All right. That's a number that's working for me. I gotta find out if we have all the data in here. Don't know we do. Yeah. Something screwy with this positional ADP rank thing. Okay, Addison, why do we have some AD? Okay. You can't do this. Data's off. Man, I gotta get a good database of ADP going again. Because right now, it's not possible. Screwy. So we got a 41% hit rate on the indicator chart. I'm pretty happy with that so far. Of interest. Mm. %18% for those that don't. All right. Which means we're missing 41% of top 12 running backs. All right. I'm going to get out of here. It seems I'm alone. And I'm going to have to work on this a little bit more. I'm going to record a podcast later. I think we started strong and then I got lost in my grinding. But, appreciate it. Thanks for checking it out. If you did, if you didn't, still talking to you. I don't know why. Let's see. Big takeaways. No real big takeaways, except for the fact as far as value targets for 2020 at running back, I think Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, David Johnson, Myles Gaskin, and Austin Eckler are offering interesting trade possibilities, but I'm still kind of on the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders train as well, so we'll see what happens with that. Appreciate it. Talk to you later. Yeah, check out my pinned tweet, I guess. I don't know. Thanks. Bye. Go where.